Well, thanks, Vishal. Should I call you Shaurya Vishal? Because you and Mere Rakesh Sharma uh, have conceived this project of meeting the veterans by round throughout the country as such, and today chosen me to speak something which could lead to the message, which could give a message to the youth. I think during our interaction earlier, what had emerged was that we are, in a way, the youth, I would say, are a troubled lot, seeing the various uh, uh, pronouncements as slogans, which ultimately was termed as Tukre Tukre Gang and things like that. It had caused a matter of concern. As far as I am concerned, uh, today I am almost 68 years, 7 days to be precise, and was commissioned on 14 November 1971 after graduating from UP Sainik School, Lucknow, National Defence Academy, Kharagwasla, Pune, then Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. During the complete course, when I got commissioned, I had an interesting induction, seen the Battle of Pachagar in Bangladesh, and then the Battle of Khansama. The whole career of the army, that is 27 years, was interspersed with the unit life, that is the active soldiering, to the staff work, which was, leading to intelligence, operations, logistics, as well as planning. A good spectrum and a good exposure. And then I switched on to the civil life, where I did a number of assignments, and I'm doing it till date. Now, Vishal, if you remember, we had an interaction where dealing with the operations as such of 1971 or Indian Peacekeeping Force, where I had participated, we decided that we should first deal with something on Kashmir issue, because it is again troubling the country by and large. Even the politicians get divided in opinion for their fringe benefits as well as in the national interest. So I have made an endeavor. I'm basically not a constitutional expert and nor a historian. I'm a pure infantry soldier. But my heart and soul is totally devoted to the national integrity and the armed forces. And it is a great, and the learning there in the armed forces has been a big driving force. Now, coming to the Kashmir issue, it is very important that we have to have a little idea of the Pak involvement. You see, if you go through the activities of Pakistan, we find that they had made a warlike effort during the 1947, 1965, 1971, and culminated it to 1999 Kargil War, and they got a bloody nose. This was one indicator that the Pakistan's effort to break India, annex Kashmir, has always got foiled in a confrontation. Now, but suffering these defeats, they also developed a psyche of military defeat, which the military of the Pakistan, including their ISI special wing, they have always burnt or suffered from the psyche that they have been defeated always and every time. In addition, the Pak military also had a vested interest in the political power by pulling the shots. So to that extent, they always wanted the Kashmir issue to, the pot should be kept boiling. And it was that, and to that extent, they resorted to proxy war. And in that, they had induced infiltration, carry out agitation, carry out riots, and all these things, which again, this activities of insurgency, of terrorists, have got various stages. And at the moment, it is at its peak, in the sense, their attacks, though I do not know the details, the planning aspects, or the actual insight to all these incidents, but being a soldier, I go by indications. And whatever indications which one have derived or had established, from that it appears they want to show to the Kashmiris and the world at large that the armed forces or the governance of Kashmir has become ineffective. And therefore, they want that the power or the Kashmir Valley should be given to them on a platter. Now in this, we need to understand that there are, now this was being done through the locals of the Pak occupied Kashmir, mercenaries, and the locals in Kashmir itself. And we therefore need to understand that they were working under the Harkat-ul-Ansar or Lashkar-e-Taiba, duly trained and supported by the Pak army, to cause unrest, converging into a secessionist movement. It comprises now it comprises of the terrorists, stone pelters, harborers, and therefore it means that Pakistan, in no uncertain term, is totally involved in the Kashmir issue. And to that extent, there should be no debate, there should be no political debate on the hobnobbing with Pakistan, and should be assessed on actual events. Now, in this also, one need to understand there are areas which always come to areas which come in the news. That is Anantgam, Kulgam, Pulwama, Kupwara, Badgam, Sofia, Bandipur, Doda, and it is all along the narrow corridor of the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, where it is just 40 kilometers. And to that extent, they are launching their infiltration attacks through these areas. We must also get familiar to certain names which have been emerging, like Yasin Malik, Mirwais, Omar Farooq, Shabir Khan, Shah, Gilani, and Ansia Andrabi, Said Salahuddin, Buranwani, etc., etc. Therefore, you see, basically I have put across these because you, as a youth, must pick up these points specifically. And today, there is no dearth of information on the internet. Therefore, before you opine, you should first study what exactly is the situation, instead of making loose statements, holding loose public meetings, calling irresponsible slogans. All these things will mislead the country. So this is one aspect of it. Then we go on to our politics in Kashmir. You see, the political parties which are very centric are J&K National Conference, where Sheikh Abdullah and Omar Abdullah are there, Kashmir People's Democratic Party, earlier Mufti Muhammad Said was there, and now it is Mehbooba. Then BJP, Congress, they have been forming coalitions. These coalitions have almost been 5 times coalitions have been formed. Now, what is the indication from that? There is no clear-cut verdict for correct governance. Every time when we form a coalition, or the valley-centric parties, when they form a coalition of in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, they try to be soft on the terrorists, soft on the stone pelters, and things like that. It is not, let me tell you, they do not, I will not give them the credit that they do not know what all these activities mean. But due to the political expediencies and to remain in power, they try to be soft on them. And thus, what is happening is that every time they do that, a disturbance is created and the coalition forms. As late as, say, July, August, when Mehbooba's government also fell because of the release of the stone pelters, then the ceasefire during the Ramadan, and the events leading on to that, there was a sparking point, and ultimately BJP had to withdraw the support. So this is how the political parties have been behaving: irresponsible, and to that extent not concerned with the unity of the country, not concerned with the actual cause or the problems of the Kashmiris. Kashmiris need peace, and to that extent, that can be only provided if the governance is correct, fair, and forward-looking. So now you have seen how the political instability generally has been. And now we come on to the other, some secessionist organizations which have been identified. Now, why I'm repeating it again, it needs to be identified by you, that which are the parties, which are the areas, what are the causes, what is the political setup. Until and unless you understand all these things, you have got no right to opine, create agitation, vandalism, and things like that. So that is the reason I am trying to put out. And in that, you see, we have got JKLF, All Party Hurriyat Conference, Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkatul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Al-Badr. Now, in them also there are differences, and to that extent they had conceived a joint leadership, or called the Joint Resistance Leadership. How much it has got organized is not known to me, but the fact remains that the Pakistan is succeeding in keeping the pot boiling. And in this current situation, stone pelters had come into the fore in a very big way. It was not the first time that the political parties start crying hoarse that it has been done because of the policies of BJP or the policies of the Congress. It has been happening, but now it is more organized and on a bigger scale. Now in this, one has to analyze as to what is the objective or what is their intention to do all these things, and then decide whether this is an act of treason or an act of, causing disunity to the state or otherwise. Now if you see the pelters, what I have seen or have been reading, I find that they had a clear-cut agenda, duly issued by the Pakistan, their ISI, that they are to cause hindrance to the military operations, and also prevent and also harboring the terrorists or giving them the cover to withdraw as and when the situation is beyond their control. So pelters are not really simple pelters which are throwing stones. They have got an intention, they have got an aim, And to that extent, that aim has to be defeated. And if you have seen certain clips which have been vouched for that they are correct, they have physically handled the CRPF men or the other police constabulary, which is unacceptable.
Yes.
And to that extent, not only protection, but these actions have to be stopped, prevented, and put into the whole back so that they do not do it. And as far as the army is concerned, they are very clear in their aim, and to that extent they are very professional. All these years, based on the government policy, they have been taking actions, they have been operating. Earlier, the Armed Forces Special Power Act got diluted, where army men were say, prosecuted for some overindulgence in their actions as part of their operation, and police inquiry, court of inquiry, court martials, all these were being faced by them. Whereas they have got no intention of doing that. They do not intend. We are very well trained. We have carried out operations in Bangladesh where our conduct was commendable. We liberated a race, and thereafter we came back to the barracks without disturbing or without causing any agony to the civil masses. So we are very well trained. We went to Sri Lanka. Our conduct was the same. Military operations as well as the civic actions. So to that extent, being pursued or being harassed or being facing the police inquiry, all these things were unwarranted, which I shall be coming up later too. So this is one situation which is there at the moment in Kashmir. So you have to link the involvement of Pakistan, the political parties, valley centric, the situation, the continuity in the government, falling of the government, imposition of the governor's rule. All these things need to be very well understood before you even dare to opine on loosely on the media or otherwise. So these are some of the things which need to be taken into account. And then the other landmark, which is a very important landmark in the solution of the Kashmir, that is the Kashmiri Pandits, which were hounded out. I know because there were neighbors who had come and they were shivering even as far down south in Pune, because the way they were frightened, the way they were hounded out, as if it was a 1947 Gadar. Not exactly Gadar, I would say, but a migration of population. Not done. This is India. Kashmir is part of India. It has been more than clarified in various issues, which will come later. So now coming down more further, now the role of the armed forces also. Now basically it must be understood the role of the armed forces is to eliminate the terrorists and the terrorist organizations, thereby bringing peace to J&K state for normal governance as per the constitution and the law of the country, which includes reference to Article 370 and 35A. It is the call of the government to decide the time and the scope of decision. Ramadan ceasefire or release of stone pelters by Mehbooba Mufti, according general amnesty to the terrorists. So these are government decisions, but the point is, army should be taken into confidence and involved in the decision making. Yes, we understand strategy, we understand nation building, and to that extent, it is very important that army should be taken into confidence. And these decisions could have been avoided, and the advantages gained during the last, say, since January 18, we could have capitalized on it further, because now it is September, and this was the phase where we should have carried out the consolidation of the operations and thereby entering into a winter seasons where passes get sealed, and in that thereafter flushing out the hold-in terrorists which have been left behind in the valley. So all these is a big gamut where it is important that the role of the armed forces must be understood. As far as the Article 370 and 35A, it is also understood by the armed forces, and that is why they follow the principle of good faith. They follow the principle of good faith and minimum force, but to shoot for effect. We mean business. Once we see a situation is beyond the control, which may cause, damage to the property, public, threat to life and security, all these aspects. So the shoot for effect is our learning. To that extent, no one should have doubts. If we fire, we have fired for a reason, and to that extent, it should not be debated in a public forum. This is what has been happening. So this is a portion of what the armed forces are to do, and the armed forces are, let me tell you, they are aware of the civic actions. That is again a part of learning to how to help out the peaceful Kashmiris by opening, say, medical camps, or by organizing, by helping them to open the schools, which the terrorists have purposely done it to prove that the governance has failed, and to that extent your future is at stake. And to that extent we have restored the situation. So the floods in the J&K, after all, that was a disturbance which the terrorists had taken advantage of, yet the army, the CAPF, that is the Central Armed Police Forces, everyone got together and they are still working on it and rehabilitating the Kashmiris. So to that extent, it has to be understood that we know civic actions, we like to do good, and our principle should not be violated. I repeat once again, that is principle of good faith, principle of minimum force, and also the shoot for effect, because all these need to be combined, and that is where the judgment lies. So coming on to that, the other part of the operations in Kashmir is the collaboration with the different forces, because there are different forces which are operating. We have created them, and now it is the responsibility of the government that they coordinate the operations. They had made a unified command way back when General Krishna Rao was there, I think, and at that time it was a great effort. It was conceived, but then the actual effectiveness is a matter which needs to be streamlined, effectively enforced. It cannot happen. The unified command, because we do not listen to each other, the unified command lands up in Delhi. The unified command of operations is very clear. I need not name it. It is to be named by the government, duly analyzed by the bureaucrats. So to that extent, that is how the operation should be. I would say the positive point is that this time, the indications give a feeling that there was a better coordination than before. Yes. Intelligence sharing was better than what it was before. Now coming to intelligence sharing, my personal experience in J&K have been, though for a very small time, I found that one source is being tapped by 5 agencies, the same source, and everyone is talking big. I have found out this aspect, the information about the enemy I have gained it earlier than what the other agency has done. So all these things need to be coordinated, and I think if it is being done under Mr. Doval, who is the Chief Security Advisor, uh, it would be worthwhile, because the indications like making a list of the terrorist who lynched this the sub-inspector, or the killing of the second lieutenant Faiz when he had come to sister's marriage. All these things need a very coordinated effort to learn the operations of the enemy, of the terrorists. And a list being drawn is a very constructive thing. We should aim that these must be eliminated. And to that extent, I think we followed it till July. But thereafter, there is some slowdown, because that objective killing, the sniper shooting, or the surgical operations have not been visible, or the media has got too involved in 2019 elections. So this is what needs to be learned by the youth. If they are interested in Kashmir, making loose statement, this is like Aruna Diti Roy, that this is not part, Kashmir was never part of India, is something pathetic. It is lack of knowledge and irresponsible citizen of India.
Here I would like to add one more comment, like they've been funded
Yeah.
to run such kind of propagandas,
Correct.
to misguide the youth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this, I think intelligence has also gone on to this aspect,
Right.
that funding of such organizations, they are trying to identify all around the country, whether it is in the east, where other operations were there, or in Kashmir, where it is a burning issue, and even like stone pelters, very rightly brought up. They are being funded, they are being paid. So that is the issue.
People in Kashmir, they withdraw their money from their bank accounts and hand it over to the stone pelters. So this is also kind
Yeah.
of a hidden agenda run by the politicians or the anti-nationalists.
Yeah. Now, you see, here the youth need to be guided. When our politicians say that the students or the youth must take part in politics, it does not mean the destructive politics. You cannot misguide by you may be having say relations, you may be having say political links, you may be having some sort of understanding during when you were in power, that you may be having some understandings, but that understandings do not supersede the national interest. And if it is being done, whether it is a politician, whether it is say a person of defense forces, security forces, or anybody for that matter, is not above the constitution, above law, above the nation as such. Nation first is the main issue. So now I had just now referred to the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, but before that, when we try to summarize the thing, we will come to a conclusion that the solution to the Kashmir should lie within the presence of certain documents which are there, like Instrument of Accession, then Constitution of India, then Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and agreements like Shimla Agreement. Why I mentioned this agreement is because there, after that agreement, it was all bilateral resolving of the issue. Now we cannot go back. We should try to, during Nehru's time, it was plebiscite and things like that. It was not. We have come over the years. We have come of that age. We are now at a stage where there is no doubt that Kashmir is part of the India. with original boundaries. With original
Original boundaries.
boundaries. We have not yet laid down our claim for the original land of Kashmir. Though, of course, Pakistan unethically had traded lot of territory with China, which is most unethical, which world has yet to question, and we will definitely sort it out. So these are some of these things. Now, to understand this issue, the fundamentals as a layman of the Article 370, you see, it is a special article which gives autonomy to Kashmir state, but with reservations for defense, foreign affairs, and communication and finance. So these are the exceptions where the Article 370 lays down that much of autonomy. However, this article as such was always a temporary measure, though its modification or its removal required a special process to modify, and with a special mention that the concurrence of the Legislative Assembly of Kashmir, J&K, will have to give concurrence to that. So, just going by that, it is important to learn that all this has been discussed both in the corridors of the law, corridors of the power, corridors of the government. These are being discussed. But in one of the Supreme Court ruling, it is very clear, and it reads, I will read it for you. It is clear that the state of J&K has no vestige of sovereignty outside the Constitution of India, which means that the Constitution of J&K is answerable to the Constitution of India. And its own constitution is subordinate to the Constitution of India. So this is very clearly laid down, and it is our responsibility to know that, instead of talking loose, that we are not taking due care of the state as such. And
I would like to interrupt you. Here, someone from my team has put a question, which is, with the current circumstances, what is happening with the morale of man of ground? Like, he's asking about the soldiers. So how we are boosting their morale to get indulged in such kind of operations, and morale to boost up their, would like to say, not to leave or not to back out from the critical situations.
You see, your point is very, very valid. This gentleman definitely is observant, because the requirement at the moment is the indication. I go by indications because all the information is not with me. The soldiers going to Supreme Court on the dilutions of Armed Forces Special Power Act, the first indication is why they are doubting the armed forces for executing a job. Doesn't a policeman, when he takes hold of a criminal under the IPC, at times gives a third degree treatment? So to that extent, this is a very loose parallel I have drawn. But the point is, ultimately, a stage has come due to the governance of the government that the armed forces personnel had to go to the Supreme Court, that if you want us to conduct, I repeat, military operations, if they want to conduct military operations against the terrorists who are secessionists and they want to annex the valley, to that extent, it invites total military operations, and that cannot be diluted. Though I have repeatedly said, the principle of good faith, minimum force, and shoot for effect is always there in our mind. The commanders are very much aware, and so it trickles down to the man on the ground. But in an ambush, you cannot say that you do not fire a volley of bullets, because ambush needs that you should straight away take a counter action, then only you will live, otherwise you will die on the spot. So all these actions have to be understood. Now coming to the morale, Now this is an indication. Very good question. This is an indication that it is somewhere troubling the armed forces. It is somewhere troubling the Jawan who has got affected, who is facing a police inquiry or who is facing an FIR. For example, I think it was Major Aditya or somebody who was to be prosecuted, and his father had to file a petition in the Supreme Court to get that aspect nullified, the proceedings of inquiry to be nullified. So to that extent, this has to be understood at the national perspective, and the political parties debating on that is very shameful. They should unite. They should give the mandate to the ruling party, whichever it is, whether you like it or not, give the mandate to the ruling party to resolve the issue straight away. So the morale is definitely on strain. Though they are operating very professionally. Credit goes to them totally and without any hesitation as such. So that is what it is. Morale is at strain. This is a message, and to that extent, every citizen should question this. Why all these issues have not been discussed regarding morale in the parliaments, both the houses of parliament? It is a matter of concern. So to that extent, this is what I would like to say. It is on strain, and you as law-abiding citizens, without resorting to vandalism, you must contact your leaders at the local level, at the district level, at the parliament level, and raise this question, why this is happening. So does it answer the question of the gentleman?
Yes, it's very well described.
Right. So other differences which are there in Article 370 is that in the rest of India, says the state assembly tenure is 5 years, whereas they have got it 6 years. All these are amenable to modifications, but there is a process to follow. Now, since a process is not at times followed, certain disputes come in. For example, the Article 35A. Again, this is in the news, this is in the air, this is in the Supreme Court, that Article 35A, which has been introduced in the Constitution of India as, I think, part of Part 3, in the Part 3 of the Constitution. It relates to the rights of the Kashmiris, permanent rights to the Kashmiris, wherein they nobody else can buy the property except the inhabitants of Kashmir, and those who have been possessing the property for last 10 years. So this is the rule which is being followed. Now the question is why it is in debate. It is in debate because it was introduced by the presidential order and not as the process of passing it in the parliament, then issue of the presidential order and things like that. So those who are constitutional experts and those who are interested, this particular article has got a divisive effect, they are agitating and they want to the matter to be discussed in the Supreme Court, whether it is legal or illegal. And that is where this Article 35A is. Basically, it is being the permanent resident of the Kashmiris, and the others do not have right to property. So this is what it is. The other difference you see is basically, I'll just touch upon it very briefly. That is the President with the Article 3 of the Constitution, which reads, the President with the approval of the Parliament can form, merge, modify, change the name of the states except the state of J&K, where the state has to conquer. The key issue is the state has to conquer for all such amendments. So the key issue is, unless there is a proper governance, how these issues can be streamlined, how these issues can be merged so that we are a composite whole. We are a unity in diversity. At the moment, because of lack of governance, lack of political stability, 5 times coalition government, only one completed the term, rest of them fell short of the term. All these things need to be dealt with. So this is what it is. Now coming to the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Armed Forces Special Power Act was existing well before it was introduced in J&K. It gives the special emergency powers to the armed forces when the area is declared disturbed area. Now, who can debate this aspect? This area is not a disturbed area, where stone pelters, harboring terrorists, where the government at times, just to please, they want to hobnob with Pakistan. They may give a positive call to the Pakistan to come to the table for talks and things like that. So to that extent, this aspect is quite clear. It is a disturbed area. The South Kashmir, at one time, I think it was around 2010 or something, they wanted to convince this particular southern Kashmir is now cool and let the forces thin out, if not withdrawn. It was done, and what effect? We have landed up again after 8 years or so back into the same hotbed. So in this, I will read out certain portions. The Armed Forces Special Power Act 1958 was passed by the Parliament on 11th September 1958, but was introduced in 1990 in J&K with a special amendment. Now, you should be aware, it is not only peculiar to Kashmir that they have certain special powers. It is even in the Seven Sisters, or Seven Sisters, which we call in the East, and the states in the East, they have been given certain special powers. So to that extent, if the armed forces have been given power in the East, why not in the Kashmir, where it is a disturbed area? So this has to be understood instead of debating whether it is right to give it or not. Now, if you are not giving that right, if you are not believing on the principle of operations of the armed forces, then what are you trusting? What are you trusting? If you do not trust the armed forces, if you do not trust their operations, if you do not trust their intent, what sort of responsibility you are devolving on them? So the basic fact is you trust your armed forces, and to that extent, I would say the citizens play a very, very important role. The man behind the gun is important, but the people behind the man is much more important.
So we have seen and we have been witnessed during 2016, the para forces led an operation called surgical strike, the world famous operation.
Yes.
And our politicians, which are situated in Delhi, they claim that this is a fake.
Yeah. So this is what we are up to.
Yes.
This is what the armed forces are up to. Now the person who has questioned that what is the morale of the army, morale of the army may be high, but it is because of their own motivation. It is not the motivation given by the government or the politicians who keep on questioning every now and then that whether the surgical strike was carried out, whether these operations are fake, whether these operations are encounter operations. So all these aspects have to be understood. Only then you can give out a responsible statement, and you are not part of Umar Khalid or Kanhaiya gang who just decided on one civic gathering that they should shout slogans भारत तेरे टुकड़े टुकड़े होंगे, inshallah, inshallah. Is it a responsible statement? And if they are being punished, why question that? Why that outrage was not there among the other among the other parties, among the other organizations, other voluntary organizations, those which will deal it further. So these are the issues which are a matter of concern. They are having a strain on the psyche of the armed forces. I am not sounding it big, but somewhere it is eating. Otherwise, 400 men and officers would not have gone to the Supreme Court. It is an indication. I do not know. I am a retired veteran, just keeping my eyes and ears open. But this is an indication which has to be picked up, which has to be picked up by the intelligence. It has to be picked up by the intelligence agencies which are working under Mr. Doval. So all these aspects are important. So in J&K, basically, the sum and summary is that the Armed Forces Special Power Act is has become a contentious issue. Even Mehbooba Mufti, who was having a coalition with the BJP, she was also time and now she was mentioning regarding the dilution or the removal of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. So this is not possible. And those who talk of human rights, they must know what human rights the army is doing, what civic actions the army is doing. Is it a farce? Let them come to the ground and see it for themselves. A person who is about to kill, say 10 persons, and if he is not shot down, what is the logic behind it? Those 10 Kashmiris, if they are killed, imagine the hue and cry, the ineffectiveness of the forces. It is not the prestige issue. It is the ability to defend the actual Kashmiris of Kashmir. Others, those who believe in secessionist attitudes, they are not the real inhabitants of Kashmir, which forms part of this country. So this is what it is. Now, as we go ahead, we have discussed basically most of the things about this. Therefore, the point is that the role of the youth, even say specifically related to Kashmir, is integrity of the country, the integrity of the borders. They cannot have the option of delineating, annexing, and offering arguments that the Kashmir is not the part of India. So that point is totally killed. We have to proceed from here and for further policies, whichever So I have touched upon Kanhaiya, Tukre Tukre gang. It is obvious that somewhere or the other we are instigating them. Otherwise, they do not have the guts, they do not have the ability to organize such an issue in an educational institution. It has never done.
So Kanhaiya is just 35 and he's studying, still studying.
Yeah.
And I'm 35, I'm doing my job and leading the life in a different way.
Absolutely.
So it's all funded and they want to defame the Indian Army and armed forces by their ill thoughts, I would say.
Right. Correct, absolutely. So basically now, Shaurya, Vishal.
Yes,
right?
thank you for providing me such kind of honored name, Shaurya.
So basically I have touched on all the important issues.
Yes.
I have touched upon the morale of the armed forces. I have touched upon the constitutional जो references which are there, what is the problem? Generally, we need to know only this much, and after that, form a constructive opinion to voice it right up till the government level. So this is what is required. Now, you see, what I have been finding otherwise also, which is related to the youth, is that there are certain programs which are being pursued by the government. Say, for example, GST, right? Goods and Services Tax. Now, who can say this concept is not good? Now, working out the details, the modalities, for that, it cannot be 100%. It has to go a course correction. There is a council for GST. Now, that aspect the government has to ensure that that council is sensitive to the needs of the people. But let me tell you, people are also not very innocent. There are a number of cases. Now they have already built counter to the GST. And if the GST has been reduced, they are not passing it on to the consumer. So all these things need to be understood. It is not that what is being spoken on the media, this is wrong with the GST, this is wrong with the GST. To comply with it, there are difficulties. There are difficulties of the individual family units because they might suffer. They might suffer a little low graph in their earnings. But in the long run, it is a concept which is sound, which needs to be implemented, which will develop state and union relationship, make it better, and sharing of the revenue better. So all these things are definitely, nobody can refute that. Where you find that there are irregularities, please report. Where you find that high-handedness is there, please report. And we must even go to a peaceful agitation also. Mind you, peaceful. You cannot burn buses. You cannot throw milk on the roads. This is all being misguided. Those poor farmers, they are being misguided. It will not make a dent anywhere because it is all a vote bank politics. So now this was one. Now the other issue which the youth must know, because they will just think while walking from one corridor to the other while changing the periods, and they hear ki GST to bekar hai. So that sort of thing should not happen. Same is the case with Swachh Bharat. You tell me, when you go to a foreign country and you are going around, do you throw your toffee wrapper on the ground? You don't do it. But why should you do it in your own country? Do you know of a girl who caught a man by his arm and when he was peeing, and she asked, "What are you doing?" Why should it happen? You don't do it in a foreign country. But the analogy to that is that our toilets should be clean. So that it is direct responsibility of the government. Whether it is the union, whether it is the state, whether it is the bureaucrats, whosoever it is, they have to make it possible. And a number of programs are there. Do you think cleaning of Ganga is so easy? Dredging of Ganga is easy? Or we ourselves, you see, we carry the polypacks and throw it, throw it. In spite of the fact that you have been told time and again that it will not die or merge into the soil for next, say, 20 years. Their lives are there of various composition, chemical composition, polythene bags. They have got their own lives. So all these things have to be in a very, very cooperative manner. So let's live by that. And the youth must understand. They should participate. Leave alone their own wrappers. Have you ever tried, if say a paper is lying while you are walking, you pick it up and just keep it on by the side of the road where it can be picked up by the scavenger vehicle. So all these things need to be understood. Then we go on to the other aspects like the various things which have been happening, that is the mob lynching, the Gau Rakshaks, Bajrang Dal, PFI, RSS, all these. You see, you cannot keep on doing a mudslinging match. As far as say the Gau Rakshaks, they need to be criticized if they are doing mob lynching. Why? Because if you want to implement the policy of Gau Rakshaks, of being a Gau Rakshak, it is important. It has to be a complete plan. You cannot keep a cow which is giving milk in your stables and the other cows are lingering on the roadside. I at times wonder and I feel amused also when I see an old buffalo who is not required neither at the home nor on the streets, and the poor guy, if he sits down he cannot get up, and if he gets up he cannot sit down. So this is the type of thing which is happening. Where are the gaushalas which can take care of such this thing? And if you want to implement the policy, gaushalas be taken care of, empowered. Definitely the cows deserve the respect, they deserve a national status, there is no doubt about it. But please plan it. Lynching is not the effort. On the other side, it must be known to you all that there is a lot of theft, cow smuggling. And why I am telling you is not that I have got any secret links. I was sitting with a person who probably was dealing with it, and while sitting with him for 30 minutes, he got 5 calls. सब ये 2 काऊ इस एरिया से दूसरे एरिया में वो गाड़ी में ले जाई जा रही है, or something like that. So all these happenings have to be checked, and that is how a plan has to be made in totality to take care and to restore the dignity of the cow. Everyone will support. There is no doubt in my mind. So that is what it is. Now, same is the point that lynching, then Bajrang Dal, there is not welcome. RSS, I would say, is doing a good job at the moment. Kerala, otherwise, I don't think. And now, gone are the days when people should, the political parties should do Rajniti on the goats, other activity where it is. Because all what is being done by RSS is being done by others. The indication statement, controversial. Kerala played a soft role on that. But I have now in this, you see, the important point is, if the time is not short, I would draw the attention of the nation as well as the youth on the population explosion. It is a well identified in our population, and whatever advantages which are accruing at the moment, the political expediency, say for example the vote bank politics. So this is another important area which is not being touched upon. Then the other is the reservation issue. Reservation issue, mind you, I have been dealing as an armed forces personnel 79. I had to do a fair amount of work to assess the situation on the reservation issue. And what came to light, and mind you, there are reservation issue was a temporary provision in the constitution, but it was being relegated or being renewed time and again because of the political expediency, that is the vote bank politics. So this is another area which needs to be studied, which needs to be followed, and it is not selected. This population or reservation cannot be selective, because now days have gone, and if any Dalit, any scheduled caste, or any, for that matter, a deprived person, economically weak, is being maltreated, mistreated, or being killed, there is a law to that. Why not enforce that law? Why should not that district magistrate or the superintendent police or the IG of the range should take action in a detrimental manner? There are provisions. Why should the government should not allow that? So the question that reservation is a must, because we are still ill-treating the deprived, untouchables and things like that, I think it needs a review, and where the youth should also think whether it is like that. They should not fall prey to the politicians and start blowing their trumpet. So that is another aspect which I wanted to highlight for them. And of course, they are general in nature, but very serious otherwise. Physical fitness, code of conduct, aligning to cast your vote. Now, youths which are in university or collegiate, they are eligible for voting. So they have to vote responsibly. They cannot be taken for granted. They should be motivated on causes, not the political parties. They are not politicians. So they should go by the cause and not by the politics. So this is why it is very important that they should align their votes. Then a reservation issue I have dealt. Then very nicely it has been touched upon that say issues of triple talaq and nikah halala. Now, by any standards, by any simple logic, can any youth say that it is justified, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the caste, creed and whatever it is? So it is important that they should know what is namak halala, and then they will fear. They will fear to an extent that probably they will never think of that this should ever be a practice in the country. Sati went out. Why not these practices? Right? So this is what is the point to be understood by them. Then coming ultimately to some of the controversies like national anthem and national flag. You tell me, did what Galileo pointed out that the earth is round, who has seen it? But when I'll ask Shaurya that whether earth is round, you will say it is round. When I say Umar Khalid whether the earth is round, he will say the earth is round. But has he seen it? So for national anthem, does he need a constitution? Right from the school days, they have been hoisting the flag. They have been singing the national anthem. They have been respecting it. They have been saluting it with their small hands. And now they have grown up to question its validity, its respect. People, I have seen mullahs, padris, pandas, all embroiling all these issues on the TV. Is it respectful? So this is what needs to be questioned. These are the things you need not find it there. You know it from the childhood. You are singing the national anthem as part of the respect. And as you grow up, you understand its meaning and you understand why it is respected. So where is the politics about it? Similarly, the national flag. Now, in this also, there is no doubt about it. The people at the Lt.Col trying to burn the national flag. They should be dealt with as if it is a seditious act. So, though it has to be done with a process. If he is a young man, he has to be dealt with separately. If he is a terrorist, he needs to be shot at. There is no doubt about it. And I come to, just off the cuff, I will come to it. I was seeing this time on 14th August and 15th August, people trying to fly the Pakistan flag. I was wondering why we have faulted on that. Why so many flags came? Which was the tailor who has made it? Why the intelligence could not reach that man, that tailor who had stitched it for them? Whether it was imported from Pakistan, why it could not be established? There should be no Pakistan flag, either in the trunk of an inhabitant, any Kashmiri or anybody else for that matter. So it was something which was very, I was quite perplexed about it. Ki why no one has questioned this issue, ki why so many flags, from where it came from, who stitched it, where the cloth came from, where the effort was, who was coordinating this effort. So this is a matter of intelligence and to deal with those guys. And gentlemen, I have spoken enough, but still I will like to mention there is a need to understand the army. There is a need, the army, or for that matter the armed forces, are for the people, by the people and of the people. So you need to support them. You cannot tell them ki tie your one hand behind the back and then execute operations, and then you are duty bound to lose your life also, as well as achieve results. All these are very contradictory things. So you have to back up the armed forces. Then I read a beautiful lines, and they said the Indian army needs everything except courage. Do you realize the import of this? They need everything else except courage, because courage is inbuilt in them. The valor is inbuilt in them. They perform their duties because that is inbuilt in them. But they need everything else. Though, of course, the government may have sanctioned 46,000 crores of defense budget. It may sound big. But yesterday I was attending one of the seminars on defense of homeland or something like that. They had displayed drones. They had displayed light guns and things like that. My only question to them, when I looked at them, I never touched it. I just saw it. And then I asked the man there in charge that have they been issued to the Indian Army? They said no, it will take some time. The need of the day is today, because the operations are going on. Why it has not been done? We have got good relations with Israel. Have we procured off the shelf to meet the immediate needs, so that we can find out where the pelters are congregating, where the pelters are harboring, and things like that. So to that extent, it is the army needs to be understood. Army's operation, it definitely affects the psyche. As I told you, they going to the Supreme Court. It is an indication which nation should be alert. It is not a mere hearing at the Supreme Court, but it is somewhere hurting the psyche of the soldiers.
Regarding good parenting, one of our viewers, Lt.Col Malhotra, mentioned that even parents do not even bothering that their children are getting brainwashed by anti-nationals. Yeah. So I would say something is lacking in good parenting, or like that.
Absolutely. You see, this is where now I'll again go back to Kashmir first. There also, you see, the people who are having this Rajniti, they are children, they are very delicate age, they are misguided a lot. My point was, if that be so, then they should be hounded together instead of releasing them en masse, and reach their parents and hand it over to them to take care of them, to teach them what is the nationhood, what is their responsibility as a citizen who is coming up. And similarly, it goes everywhere in the rest of the country also, because this aspect needs a very careful parenting. And in that, one of the suggestions would be they should focus, as I said, the students, their strategic focus in whatever I have spoken so far, their strategic focus is just one, that is studies, studies, playing, being physically fit and excelling, and thereafter following a field of their interest. And for armed forces, I would say it needs a different flair. And if you have that in you, like the ad also says in army, does it? Is there in it you?
Do you have it in you?
In you, yeah. So if you have it in you, just step into the army. It is a great profession, and let it be great, and let it not be handled by the Rajniti or the bureaucrats' rivalry. It should be. It is an institution by itself, and what I am saying is being followed in every other country. And today I have to take examples of other countries because somewhere we are losing sight of it. Somewhere we are trying to equate. Somewhere we are trying to level and not give the right position which is there. So that needs to be discussed. Maybe a white paper from the government. How these other forces came about. What was their birth of coming into being, the purpose, the role, all these issues needs to be there may be a white paper on that. So that is what it is. I may sound strong. I am strong, but I am very genuine about it. So I can take on this task. Right. So this is, in general, this is the focus of the youth. Now, if you have time, then I can take on a little bit of the 1971 operations.
Yeah, that would be more interesting for the viewers.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
because all the topics you covered, they know everything about in and outs about the current affairs. But 1971 war, like I would say, a generation has changed.
yeah.
So I was born in 1983. So
Okay.
it's like I have just read in newspaper or in books about the war. So for our viewers, it would be amazing or tremendous thought sharing by you. So
You see, as far as 1971 war, it is was a very interesting going for me because I was in Indian Military Academy in 1971.
wow.
And I was completing my 1 year of training and then becoming an officer. But then what happened? There were rumors on that refugees are coming. Refugees are coming to a magnitude of say 9 million. That amounts to 90 lakh of refugees, which was an economic burden to the nation, economic burden, the law and order problem, and things like that. So they needed to be adjusted, they needed to be pushed back, and which no one was daring to do that. The diplomatic efforts by Indira Gandhi were on, and they were on very actively. The enormity of the problem was being understood by the world, right up till I think Mr. Nixon was there as president, and she met him also. So, and I was a young man of 20 years, hearing these rumors. So, yet, you see, there was an excitement. One should. Then we came to know that some units of the Indian Army have gone in to adjust these, or helping the Mukti Vainis. Mukti Vaini was a voluntary force of the Awami League, which was the political party which was a prime mover to the agitation and the movement, ultimately leading to liberation of Bangladesh. So they were. That was the sort of situation which was there, and then the other thing was that around March 1971, the Awami League, after intolerable suppression by the West Pakistan, the Yahya government, and his military junta, which was there in East Pakistan, and also the Razakars. Razakars were anti-Bengalis, say Vani as such. So in March somewhere 1971, Awami League declared independence. That was the time I think we also started thinking of moving in. But you remember, Field Marshal Manekshaw, well known by everybody, of his professionalism, of his um, forthright and honest opinions on matters of security and things like that. So he at that time advised that this is not the right time to take any action, and because of the monsoons coming in, overflowing, flooding of the areas which Bangladesh is all around with rivulets, rivers, and even the say merging of the into the ocean. So all these aspects were there. Then the preparation part of it, going in, there is a need for training. Though we train for all circumstances, but there was a need to train, and then mobilization. Mobilization is not easy. So mobilization means, say, as unit is in Kerala, it has to be mobilized right up till Bangladesh or West Pakistan, to the Western Front, I would say, Western Front, because we had to take care of the Western Front also. So to that extent, this is how the overall scenario was, and in that ultimately we are in November 1971. Though prior to that also some involvement was there with Mukti Bahini, but then that was the time we had planned to move. Now I as a young, so these rumors were on around in academy ki our passing out parade will be early, and it happened that instead of December 1971, our passing out was scheduled on 14th November 1971. 13th November was the passing out. 14th November we were commissioned. Right? So this passing out was pre-scheduled. Jagjeevan Ram had come up on our pipping ceremony. Now pipping ceremony is also very dramatic, you see, and very sanctimonious also. That and in the 12th hour of the night, you congregate in a historical hall that is called the Chatrut Hall, and there you come there with your pips on, covered with ribbons, and your parents, your relative, your friends, your girlfriends, or somebody or the other is there with you. And at 12 o'clock the light goes out, and all those who are next to you, they remove the ribbon, and the light comes in, and you are the Indian Army officer, Indian commissioned officer.
Wow.
So that is the dramatic part of it, and that drama for me did not end there, you see. What happened ki I was to join the unit, and on 24th November we got just few days to join the unit. I had written a letter which we were taught that you should inform which train you are coming, where you have to come. So my nearest railway station was Dimapur, but at a place called Kishanganj. At a place called Kishanganj, there was an officer who peeped in, and he was Lieutenant Manjunath, VRC. He earned for himself Veer Chakra, and subsequently in the battles. He said, "Is there any Lieutenant Bedi in this compartment?" And he said, "Yes, sir, I am Lieutenant Bedi." I was sitting in kurta pajama, in old style of holdall which is there, with quilt, because it was winters, so with quilt and all that. So he suddenly said, "Ki saab ka saman bahar pheko." So after my confirmation that I am posted to 21, so 4 Johnnies got in with battle dress on, bayonet at the back, pithu on the shoulders, and things like that. Cut pat, and they came in. They folded my holdall, and they were on the platform. Thank God they did not throw my trunk. They managed it. The train was about to move, but they managed to pulled it out somehow. So, and then I was asked to change. I had no battle dress. I just had ceremonial dress. So the senior subaltern, he is called, He looks after my discipline in the initial stages. He said, you go and change into whatever dress you have. So I changed into my ceremonial dress, Sam Brown belt and all those things. So I changed, I came. Before that, when I was in kurta pajama, people around me thinking that I am a spy or something. They were told to disperse because everything is normal. So I went, changed in the changing room, and we moved into the concentration area. Now, concentration area is basically an area which is meant for preparation for the battle. It was just on the border, and the next day we were to move into the battle, advance and go get ahead. So this is how. Now, if I just want to be a little critique, that how the preparation at times lacks. You see, that day when I was talking and I was listening to people, I found we did not have complete light machine guns. We did not have complete helmets. So our attack had to be postponed till these items had come. Otherwise, we were ready to move in. So what I am trying to point out is, gentlemen, preparation for war is not easy. A nation has to get mobilized.
Yes.
In every bit of it. And where the government, those sitting in the parliament, those sitting in the executive chairs, they need to be very, very sensitive to their requirements. It is not a one-day's job that you can just do it. It is not a rhetoric that we can fight 2.5 fronts. It is not easy fighting the Chinese, fighting the Pakistan, and fighting the battle within. We have to be prepared. And to that extent, I have got my own doubts because I have been in various appointments in the army, and I felt always, whenever I had been writing and noting, there is something amiss. So that preparation, right up till I wanted to be a critic because I wanted to highlight this so that citizens should know, the youth should know, that this is how it is. It is not an easy aspect. Mobilized, go into the battle, be victorious. At times, you, as I told you, one hand tied behind the back. So this is what it is. So ultimately, concentration area, we moved in, and then I will now I will describe the two battles where I was part of that, and it is so vivid in my mind. There was one was Battle of Pachagar, and the other one was the Khamsama battle. Battle of Pachagar came about on an axis where if we had captured that place, the advance would have moved faster. Because our strategy at the army headquarters level, which the field marshal and the army commander, then Jagdeep Singh Arora, and the planner, say your General Jacob, what they had conceived was not having a direct confrontation, direct attack on the enemy positions, but to bypass, to avoid casualties and speed up the operations. Go behind the enemy, kill his will to fight by making him feel insecure, by being behind his back, and that is how the whole operations was to go about. So to that extent, Pachagar was one objective which was there, and in that I with my platoon commander had gone into the battle. We had been given a troop of tanks also. So it was there was staff quarters, there was a sugar mill on one side, staff quarters on the other side. Everything very quiet, dead quiet. It was day. There was nothing moving except when we started moving. We were moving. There was total quietness. My platoon commander had taken a position in the high up of the sugar mill to give the cover fire and all that. And he asked me to make an outflanking move to the staff quarters. So everything was going on well till when we hit the road. There was a road in between the staff quarters and the sugar mill, and when we took positions, no fire. But after that, as soon as I started taking positions towards them, as soon as I told Vijay, तुम सड़क के पार position लो, and as soon as he jumped across, what I remember of that moment, that beautiful moment, was that not an iota of doubt in that guy's mind, whether there is a problem at hand, whether he will get killed, whether he will some harm will come to him. Not an iota of doubt. He just jumped and he was in position. So that is the beauty, that is the imprint which I have got in my mind right from 71 till date. So that was the, but as soon as he took position, there was volley of fire all around. There was volley of fire. And we were for a second dazed totally. But then we had to maneuver. There was no way out. So we were trying to find out how to go about. There was a culvert. Culvert is a small bridge. Mm-hmm. So we were planning, let us go into a hiding and then go one by one through that culvert. So, but then the enemy was on the staff quarters, on the top floor. The machine gun was fitted. He could watch a little bit. So as soon as we started making the movement, again the volley of fire was there. 2 bullets had hit my helmet, right? My helmet was, there was just, at the heat of the moment, I just heard tanan, tanan, and that's it. And a little bit of blood was oozing out from my head. Mm-hmm. And I had a radio operator. He saw that. कहता साहब खून निकल रहा है आपके. तो मैंने कहा यार मैं ठीक हूँ. There is no problem. And let's get going. So the same thing was being heard by my commanding officer, Colonel Alawat. Mm-hmm. A very cool planner and a very brave person. So, and forthright, कि ये चीज़ होगी तो होगी, नहीं होगी तो नहीं होगी. And a cool planner. So he was hearing. He said कि oh, that youngster is hurt or wounded. So then I had to tell them कि I am perfectly fine and I am operational. I will carry out the operation. You just send me reinforcements. That is what is required. We are too little. So that is how the whole operation got built up. And we crossed the road in the heat of the fire, and we captured the objective ultimately, with the support of the artillery as well as the support of the tank fire. And that is where the cooperation of the multidisciplinary forces or the infantry tank cooperation comes into play. And this is also a part of the training. Until and unless we communicate with the tank, how can we ask him to help us? So all this becomes a part of the training. And we as a well-trained force integrated this small unit of a platoon into a fighting force which could capture an objective for which the time given was till next day. We could capture it on the same day evening. So this happened. After that, the objective was captured. I was feeling tired. I just happened to meet the commanding officer. He was there somewhere. He had fetched up and he said, "Well done, son." And there were local administrators also which had come. So everyone shaking hands and saying, "You are very lucky." So I felt slightly disappointed. Why I am lucky when I have done my bit? What is so lucky about it? It was when my commanding officer told me, "Son, you go and relax." So when I wanted to take off my helmet, my hand got cut. Right? When I was taking out my helmet, my hand got cut. And I felt something is wrong. So when I took out the helmet, I realized there were 4 holes in that. The steel of that helmet was torn apart, and that touched my finger and it left a cut on it. So this is how. Had it was just a blade cut on my head. Had it been half an inch lower, probably I would not have been speaking to Vishal. So that is what it is. So that is the interesting part of it. And from here, we carried on with our battles ahead. Now, the other place where we had, which I was mentioning, Battle of Kansama. This was a very important battle because this would have opened our route to Thakurgaon as well as the not Thakurgaon, this Kansama, and route ahead to Saidpur, and of course the central place was Dhaka. So this place also, it was a battalion attack. The complete battalion was to be involved. We had undergone a planning, total planning was done. We were supposed to attack in the night, and again this time, what had happened? This attack was to go around 3 o'clock in the morning, after crossing a river, going behind this village of Kansama, going behind it, and then assaulting this place, Kansama. Right? There were almost a company of the enemy there, regulars as well as Razakars. And air support was also made available to us. And now in this, the sensitive moments were, you see, I was sitting with my company commander under a tree in the evening. It was dusk, and I was feeling as if something is to go wrong. And yet nothing was so clear. No one can tell you what is going to go wrong. And so to that extent, I just prayed what my parents had taught me, the Gayatri Mantra, 7 times. And I said, कहीं पे भी लगे हड्डी में नहीं लगनी चाहिए, ठीक है? Thereby implying कि, as a young person, if you get hurt or your bone gets crushed, you are a category for the rest of your life, and it is a way ahead at the age of 20. So this was a prayer, and after that, the 3 o'clock time came. We marched to that place, crossed it. Went. There is something called FUP, right? So that is an assault line. There you make an assault line and then you proceed. So there, my Jawan who was next to me said, "थोड़ा सा breakfast खा लो." मैंने कहा नहीं, objective पे खाएंगे. So and after that, the time came. We started assaulting, and with our war cry, Hanuman ki hu pyare. Reserves lined up. CO's party also positioned correctly so that he can read the battle and launch the rest of the reserves and things like that. We went in. My company was a Bravo company, and we went in for the attack. And as we were nearing, you see, what happened? A volley of bullet came in, and two, that is myself and my Jawan on the left, who was a 2-inch mortar. Both of us fall down together because I got a hit in the knee and my Jawan got it in the head. So it was a very painful moment. I looked left and I saw him wobbling blood out of his mouth. And I said, "Vijay." I cried twice, thrice, just to answer my call. That was his limit of consciousness. Just to answer my call, he fluttered, and that was his end. Now the precarious position was, I was hit in the knee. I could not walk. My knee was, rather the leg was trembling, because the bullet, you see, when it hits you, it is at a very high speed and frequency. So when it hit, the whole leg was trembling. Now it was bleeding also, and I had nothing with me. When that's in that state, when I was just thinking at that moment what to do next, a Jawan who was passing by me to go ahead on to the objective, because it is in echelons, the second echelon which was going. So he just threw a field dressing to me, "Hisab ye bandh do," and I tried to tie it on my complete thigh, so that a tourniquet sort of thing, so that the bleeding stops. Now nothing could be done. I was so close to the enemy that nothing could be done. But the best part was there was a thick hedge between me and the enemy, as well as the harvested fields have those मेड़ जो आपकी होती हैं harvested fields में या fields में जो होती हैं to divide or demarcate the boundary as well as to collect water. So that mead was there. Now enemy knew there is somebody here, but he could not aim and fire. I could not run because I was badly hit in the knee. So I had to just sit down there and plan what should be my next move. And the main issue was that the objective must be captured. There is no doubt, should not be a doubt. And my first prayer was that it must be, because in the ultimate analysis, if there is a failure, it is a bad sign, as well as you may fall into enemy hands or things like that. So all that, the first prayer was the objective must be captured, and it was captured. So then the commanding officer, showing his concern, he said, "Where is that young boy? I don't see him." And then I had to shout, "I am here." And then they vacated me on piggyback. Then they took me on bullock cart. Then they took me, when the shore of the river came, they took me across the river on the boat, and then into that ambulance and things like that. So there you see we have an administrative area where food is made and things like that. When I landed up there, and plus the advanced dressing station where they tie up the give you the first aid. So there you see, while they were wanting to give me morphine to give me rest with my pain, I said no, I don't want morphine, but I need food because I had more pains for not having food. So please don't give me morphine. So this is how the whole story was, and then I was evacuated on ambulance to a place which was there, Thakurgaon. From there we were put into buses. These seats were removed. The seats were removed, and we were only stretchers were put there on the floor of the bus, and then we were taken to Bagdogra. This is near Siliguri in Indian territory, and that is how was the evacuation chain. Why I am telling this in so much detail is that this is all. You cannot conceive a cut and dry, neat battle as such. There is lot involved into that. There is lot of improbables which happen, and yet what keeps us together is our camaraderie as well as our spirit, regimental spirit, and the nation's spirit, and of course your own honor also. 21 Rajput, I cannot forget. I was born there. And even today when they call me up, it is a pleasure. So now the Khansama battle was, this was one side of the picture as a young officer which I had given. But the battle was very complicated. There, the complete battalion, that is almost say 500 bayonet strength, had to be launched to capture that, and which meant a combination of machine guns, a combination of light machine guns, combination of small arms fire, and of course the infantrymen carrying all that. So it was a complicated battle, but well fought, well deserved victory, and well deserved achievement in the overall aim of the army operations. So this was that, and like an individual is given an honor by being awarded Veer Chakra, Param Veer Chakra, and things like that. The battalion is also awarded an honor, and for Khansama, we were our battalion 21 Rajput was awarded a battle honor as such, and we celebrate it every year. That is on 13th December 1971. This was the battle, and thereafter it was awarded, and we celebrate it every year. Even In operations, it is in a different manner, more professional, more in a Spartan spirit, with less of resources and quiet celebration. Whereas when it is, say, in a peacetime soldiering, we celebrate it in a big way, and it recalls, and the battalion takes cares. It calls all its veterans during that time, and to recall the old battle, recall the old stories and things like that. So this is how it was. So in nutshell, the point is that everything is planned, yet everything does not go as per plan. So there are many unforeseen circumstances. Until and unless one is rugged, one is mentally sound, one is correctly equipped, one is has catered for correct planning, all these operations cannot be victorious. It is not just chance, it is the deliberations done over, I would say, peacetime soldiering as well as wartime motivation, which wins wars. So gentlemen, this is what it is about the 1971 operations, and the Indian Army conducted itself creditably. It looked after the civilians, and my personal experience was 20 years old guy, and at Thakurgaon, it was a city sort of thing, a district probably place. Courts were there and things like that. I was standing in a corner as soon as the people used to come to know the Indian Army has come, and they will start flowing into their houses and things like that. So there were people, young and old, trying to touch your feet and things like that. And there were occasions when an old man touched my feet, I had to touch his feet. कि बाबा आप हमें ऐसे मत करिए, ठीक है? This was our job. So this is how it happened. We got de-inducted, and 16th was which we celebrate as the Vijay Divas, was in the when the war was called off. We had taken 90,000 prisoners on 16th or 15th, I think. General Niazi signed the instrument of surrender,
16th December.
It was indeed a good professionalism, where Manik Chauvin told, why don't you go and take the surrender? He said, the army commander, who is the man on the spot, he should take it. So General Jagjit Singh and General Jacob took the instrument, got the instrument of surrender signed, and there were respective places where the surrender had taken place. Indian Army was totally gentlemanly. They did not harass, they did not bully the prisoners of war. They looked after them. And and I had an experience even after my hospitalization when I came back. I had a chance to take care of the brigadiers and the generals who were prisoners. We used to respect them to the utmost extent possible, without without tolerating any nonsense. So that is the sort of spirit the Indian Army is all about. And so in the end, I would say that there is a need to orientate yourself towards the armed forces in a very very different manner. This is just not just a department. This is not a department as such. This is a fighting force. This is an elite force. It should be treated like that, and that's it.
So one more important message from your side for the aspirants and the guys who are preparing for CDS or NDA exams. Actually, they are kept on asking me in personal messages like how can they can crack the exams in a proper way and got shortlisted for the SSB interviews and then been commissioned for the IMA and NDA.
Yes, you see, I have left the army almost 20 years back, the methodology and things like that must have changed. But the basic principles, you see, that is the message again I want to give. Your fundamentals should be strong. The basic principle is that you have to prepare every bit of your exams. That means कि right from what is your syllabus. You see, quite a few of the aspirants, they lose chances because they have not read the eligibility criteria. And to that extent, on 1st January, what should be the age? It has to be determined. And now are the days when you have internet where all this information is available. So the first thing which I tell a candidate is that he should first establish the eligibility criteria in age as well as in qualification. This is a must. Until and unless you do that, you may go wrong and you may feel sorry for yourself कि यार ये तो मैंने पहले देख लेना था. And then you have to also calculate कि how many chances you will get thereafter based on a benchmark. So that has to be established the day you conceive of joining the forces. The second thing, and to that extent, if even at say, I had conceived it, say when I joined UP Sena school, I had walked up to my grandfather and told कि I want to join because I heard it somewhere. So 7th class, right? So if you have conceived of it, you should get energized towards that. So first is establishing eligibility criteria as well as your qualification criteria. Of course, eligibility I meant age and qualification criteria. The second thing is, I would say you should read the syllabus 10 times at least, right? And thereafter, almost memorize it. Write it on the wall of your study room so that you can refer to it time and again. Once you have written down that syllabus, you have to break it into pieces of detailed study. What exactly is required, right? They may have written or guided you onto in maths something. They might have mentioned. Now I do not know what would be the syllabus, but that time highest common denominator and lowest common denominator and things like that. So they would mention all that. So you have to go as per that. This I must master, this I must master, unitary method I must master, or something like that. So that is how you have to break your syllabus into pieces. Then the third thing is the physical fitness. Physical fitness is very important because you have got physical tasks also. So you have to prepare yourself. Now one is preparing yourself for the exam, for your service selection board, for the physical task, or it is making up your mind the day you want to join forces that physical fitness is a must, and you from there you can carry on endlessly till you retire. Not even retire, till you leave the world, right? So, and I have got a good anecdote, a practical one, I'll tell you slightly later. So this is what it is about the physical fitness. It has to be right from the beginning. Otherwise, the day you think 10 days ahead, you will manage it, you will run for 5 kilometers and then you will get into a tire that there is a test, or you will be able to climb the rope. All this cannot be done in a jiffy. So you have to get into that mood of joining the forces. And to that extent, you should carry on in that particular manner. So physical fitness, academics, and of course for academics, analyzing the complete syllabus. Even for that matter, even the physical fitness has to be analyzed. What sort of test, how am I going to do all these things. Coaching classes are there. That is an add-on, I would say. Being mentally prepared, being physically fit, being qualified intelligently is much more required individually, and then you go into a coaching class for better this thing, for honing on to your skills, right? So this is in nutshell, I would say. I'll add on that psychological test. there are students who have rung me up in various stages of my life. They want to join forces, they need guidance, particularly on psychology and things like that. So I remembered my old tests. I said these were the tests I have gone through. कि वो picture दिखाएंगे, उस पे story लिख दो, इसमें ये दिखाएंगे. But from my side, the first principle is be original and be honest, and you will succeed. But if you try to manipulate कि मैं ऐसे कर लूँ, मैं वैसे कर लूँ, तो then you are going to get rejected because that is not your original self. And the psychologist or the president of the board, they are well versed with all these things. They take you from one point to the other. For example, I used to read Reader's Digest. I read in that there is something called Malacca Strait, and between Malaya and which is that Indonesia. Now I think forgotten. And so that I had read. So something transpired and I mentioned that. Where is it? But since I had read it, I qualified it. This is what it is. So that ability can only come about when you are honest about it. You cannot hoodwink, and don't try to hoodwink. It is not a technique. It is not a technique. You have to be honest. So this is what I will talk about the psychological test. As far as picture is concerned, you can draw any picture, but it should lead to the positivity. It cannot lead to negativity. If you have fallen into a well, you cannot come out, so might as well sink into it. You have to make efforts to come out of it. Whatever may be the efforts. You may catch a people branch which has come into the well, or something like that. Anything for that matter. So the positivity has to be there. You cannot resign and stay back into a position of worthlessness. This is what it is. So this is how one has to go about as far as this exam is concerned. But the first point is being motivated to join the forces. And joining the forces means some people initially thought, some cadets when they used to join कि यहाँ तो पढ़ाई नहीं है. But let me tell you कि पढ़ाई मतलब there is total studies. You study throughout your career, and there are exams, there are promotion exams, there are exams to excel. So that is what it is about. Physical fitness, you have to be fit as an officer. Recently a general, I don't know his name, he got the Iron Man.
Major General Vikram Dogra.
Okay, yes, that's right.
He's available on Facebook and in our friend list, so okay. we can call them.
Yeah, definitely. He is a motivating factor. So it is like that. Now I was telling you, now I'll come back to you something. You see, a small incident which happened in my unit. I was in Hashimara. We used to stay in tents and in a jungle. There we used to go for our physical training, that is the physical fitness period of running, jogging, your sit-ups and all these things, exercises. So and I had a Jawan to help me out in my affairs. So he used to bring tea, he used to help me in my other affairs which I needed, and to that extent. So one day and they were excused, the first period, that is the PT period. So one day I found, I was running, taking my contingent, my company for a run, and I found this guy was running. I just looked at him and forgot about it. Fine, ठीक है, दौड़ रहा है, कोई हुक्म मिला होगा सेंट्रली कोई हुक्म मिला होगा कि सब ज्वाइन करेंगे तो सब ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं. फिर after 2-3 days again I found he has joined the squad of running. So ऐसे 3-4 बार हुआ. So one day when he brought a cup of tea for me after my PT class, I said, हरी सिंह क्या बात है, तुम्हें कोई हुक्म मिला हुआ है कि PT अटेंड करनी?
कहते नहीं साहब कोई हुक्म नहीं है। तो मैंने कहा तुम क्यों आते हो? कहते साहब फिजिकली फिट रहना चाहिए। मैंने कहा यार तुम फिजिकली फिट हो एकदम? कहता साहब फौज का कोई पता नहीं कब पिट्ठू पहना दे हैं। मैंने कहा ऐसी क्या बात है? साहब कहते हैं साहब आपको अभी गुस्सा आएगा ना, आप कहोगे हरि सिंह पिट्ठू पहनो 10 मील दौड़ के आओ, और मैं पिट्ठू पहन के दौड़ रहा हूँ, अगर फिट नहीं होऊंगा तो गिर जाऊंगा रास्ते में। तो दैट पॉइंट यू सी that stuck into my mind, and that is stuck still today, till today. I have a slight fever, but yet I feel I have missed my PT today, right? Or gymming today. So that sort of thing. And he taught another big lesson. Though of course, if I start narrating his stories, so it will take another 1 hour. But then, as far as one more thing he taught me was कि wisdom is not the fiefdom of only literates. An illiterate can also be a wise person. You see that point which he made, it is applicable to each and every individual of this country. कि भाई physically fit रहना चाहिए, ध्यान रखना चाहिए. And of course forces, so definitely there is no compromise on that. So it was such words of wisdom which cannot be akate जिसको कहते हैं. And similarly, there were a number of examples of his loyalty and things like that. I can speak another one. You see, we were in exercise. It was self-contained exercise in mountains. We were supposed to be 7 days self-contained. Means no supplies from your base. You have to carry your rice, dal, namak pare, meethe pare, all these things you were supposed to carry it yourself on your back, along with your blanket, your say if you can afford to carry a chadar or something like that, you were supposed to carry. Then your water bottle filled with water and all that thing. So 7 days exercise into the mountains, up against the gradient, we were just trudging along. It was probably, I think, 10 kilometers we had to go and launch a training attack. So we were going. So it was a tough going. Even in mountains, you see, at times the weather becomes humid. Say somewhere in somewhere in Bengal, and that was Hashimara was the place. Near that, in Bhutan side, and there were some of the mountains there. Not in Bhutan, but the other, somewhere in those ranges. So it was humid, where you were sweating like a pig. And then we used to have a column of mules, say 8 mules, where we will hang on their backs some pakhals of water to be carried, some other food which is required, and things like that. So what happened? We were going. So one of the officers, this was not another unit. In that I was participating with them. So he saw one of the officers of the similar rank and a similar position. He was walking without a pack. तो इसको खराब लगा कि मेरा साहब जो है वो पैक लेके चल. He came, कहते साहब अपना पैक दे दो मुझे. तो I scolded him. तूने यही सीखा है तो तू कैसे होगा? तो he said, ठीक है. He nodded his head. वो फिर चलने लगे. तो थोड़ी देर बाद ना, आफ्टर से मेरे ख्याल से हाफ एन आवर 1 आवर, फिर वो आगे आया. कहते साहब मेरा ये पिट्ठू कट गया. मैंने कहा हाँ. तो वो ना यहाँ पे उसका वो पिट्ठू कट गया था, उसका जो वो था ना स्ट्रैप, it had come off. तो then carrying it was very cumbersome. मैंने कहा वो उसके म्यूल पे रख दो. ठीक है सर, उसने म्यूल पे रख दिया. फिर again we started walking. So after say another 15 minutes or 20 minutes, he came, sir, अपना So that is the beauty of relationship. मतलब कि these things cannot be described and told. When people say कि you should not have सहायक to help you, you should not have all these things. Those who misuse, there is a law for that. Those who misuse, they must be punished. But an institution, a relationship, the incidents of these guys, okay, at times it is tremendous. Should I? This guy